Testing one.
Yes, I am. Yep. And I'm looking in this camera. All right, great. Okay. Sounds good. Welcome to a special edition of Community Insight, the news that brings you above and beyond the scope. I'm Andre Hollywood Evans, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about politics and Black history. And someone to give you some special insight is Mr. James Hills from y'all probably know him from Java with Jimmy in the mornings. Welcome. Welcome back, as a matter of fact.
I'm excited to be here. It's been a while. Definitely was not all of this
Right.
a few years ago, but definitely honored and glad to be here and see what you're doing. And still,
Yeah.
You blazed the trail for a lot of us up and coming, like content creators
Yes,
and what I
yes.
call hood media. So thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
You're welcome, anytime. Well, the first topic I want to ask you to see what is your take on Embrace. It was just unveiled back on MLK's birthday.
It was actually the 13th.
Right.
And I don't know
okay.
if you put together. Did you see the choir?
Actually, no, I didn't.
So when you get a chance, I wish you did, because you would be like, yo, Jimmy, I didn't know. So when you get a chance, check out the choir.
Okay.
And then text me and let me know.
Okay. Yeah,
but,
definitely.
So, there's a lot that was centered around the Embrace, from the selection to the day of, with the fence that was there.
Right,
Some folks
right.
wanted to get in.
Right.
In general, the Embrace is in the oldest public park in the city of Boston, which is known as one of the most racist cities in the country.
Yes.
And so to have the legacy of the Kings embedded in that park like that, first of all, no pun intended, is monumental.
Right, right.
There was a public process. There is some pushback about, how public, what were the efforts in getting the information out about the selection, about the Embrace. Long story short, I love it. It's a symbol of love.
Right, right.
MLK's granddaughter talked about it being Love 360.
Okay.
And what was really interesting for me is, in a moment in our country, in this city, people that don't live here, personalities and whatnot, rather than seizing and honoring their lives and refraining at least a day or two, refraining from making comments. And also, as Black men, we are objectified.
Right, right.
And there was a lot around, body parts and whatnot. So
Right,
I
right.
love it. I love what Embrace Boston is doing. It's there.
Right,
It's
right.
not going anywhere. And the thing that was most disappointing to me is the people's names in Boston that have pioneered civil rights and have worked toward equality are embedded around the Embrace.
Right, right.
And I don't think they got enough of the attention that they deserved. But I support it, and I support Embrace Boston for the work they're going to do
Right.
after the fact.
Okay, okay. The only disappointment I encountered was they're just a bunch of hands. I mean, I understand that it's Dr. Martin Luther King embracing his wife, Coretta Scott King. And I knew it only because they announced it on the news.
Yep.
But my only biggest question is, when so many people come to Boston, hundreds of thousands of people from all over different parts, different countries.
That's right.
They walk by and they're gonna be like, what's that? Because I was down there, I saw it's 22 feet high.
Yep.
And there was these two Black children. And they're walking by and they're like, what's that? Look, I'm like, I had to go over to them and say, this is Dr. Martin Luther King's, it's called the Embrace.
Yeah.
And they know who Dr. Martin Luther King is, but all you see is hands, there's no face. Usually most monuments or any type of representation would have some type of identifying mark. So people know right away how to identify. Okay, that's Dr. Martin Luther King, like all the statues in Faneuil Hall.
Yeah.
I mean, George Bush has got a statue. Donald Trump has even got his own statue. So I'm thinking, wait a second, why can't Dr. Martin Luther King has his own statue? So people, I mean, he has one, I think not in Faneuil Hall, but some other areas in Boston. But I'm thinking, why in Boston Common? How come they just didn't put his? That's the only thing that kind of just...
Yeah, it's not just you. The number one.
There was a lot of talk on social media behind it.
On social media, because at one point I had to like put my phone down.
Yeah.
I will admit, Amari is a friend.
Yeah, okay.
I met Hank Williams. Williams and them. I went out to Walla Walla and saw the embrace being put together before it was even fully constructed.
Yeah, it cost $10 million, I understand.
Everything was about $10 million.
Yeah.
And so a few things there. One is, if you're familiar with Hank's, most recently at the Super Bowl, Hank had a presentation at the Super Bowl. Hank's artistry is in extremities.
Okay.
If you look at most of his work, it is like that.
Right.
And I get that. But I guess that's why I named the public process. There was 3 selections, choices that the public had to contribute to make a selection.
Okay.
And that was the number 1.
Right,
the other piece was the imagery of the embrace was out there for over a year. Even when I went to Walla.
Okay.
I had my phone and did the little 360 thing. And so it was so interesting that for the general public, for folks that are working 2 jobs and have kids and whatnot and didn't see the thing to select, absolutely.
Right.
But there was some pundits, Andre, that are well connected, informed, and it slipped off their radar. And, then it was the complaining piece. I guess one of the major things around that piece is there's the abstract art.
Right.
There's our honor and our homage to the kings, but I want to specify that we're probably one, if there are not only 2 in this country, that incorporate the queen behind him. All the other monuments is just him.
Right.
So we incorporated this queen, and if you know, it came from the picture when he got the Nobel Peace Prize.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
And so
Harvard,
I heard Reverend Brown, who's a part of the origin of this, talk about the fact that the pressure that he was laying on her holding him up, and so.
Right.
But I do get it. Some of us have the opportunity to be in rooms and be in spaces and know and whatnot, and some folks don't. And then it hits the news or you see on social media. If that's your first sort of introduction, it frames a little bit of your response. So for generally, I do get it, but I also have to remember that when they put the monument up on the Washington Mall, that white concrete, we all had an issue with. Not we all, but as a people.
Right.
Now, if you go to D.C. to the monument, what's the first place we go to as a black folk? We're going to take pictures with the White Stone MLK.
Yeah, that's right.
So the blob, Lord Jesus, not the blob.
Washington,
The bean, the silver bean in Chicago.
Yep.
People hated it. Now, if you go to Chicago, what do? I'm taking a picture with the bean.
Yeah, of course.
So I get that piece. And everybody, too, also is entitled to their right and interpretation of art, and also to even have a little more feeling because of who it was portraying.
Right. Very important.
Absolutely.
And the fact is, he's from New York, and he's currently in New York. Mr.
Hank
Tom,
okay.
Yeah, he's in New York. And I was like, that's another question. We reached out to him, so I'm trying to see if we get him as a guest, hopefully, and just to share his vision, what he was thinking. I was saying, why Boston? I was just curious about why Boston, out of all places.
Well, I don't know if it was so much Boston versus he saw I guess they would call it bid for it and just, applied. And, I mean, of course, I guess in the bid it said Boston.
Right.
But, there was also aren't there artists, from here.
Well, Boston's a historical city anyway.
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just want to have his vision, shared with that. But yeah, there's been a lot of talk on social media. A lot of people I understand Martin Luther King III was disappointed.
No, he wasn't.
Because on social media said that he had, somebody probably just, how people spread rumors, saying that he was very uncomfortable, he didn't understand what it was representing. Oh, that's a disgrace on social media.
I interviewed him.
Yeah. Oh.
Face to face.
Oh, okay.
And I'll share the video with you.
Right.
I interviewed MLK III one-on-one.
Yes.
Just about 6-7 weeks ago. And he loves it.
Oh.
And he also agreed with his daughter about the representation of it being 360 in love. there were some family members from Mrs. Coretta Scott's side, the Scott side.
Yeah, yeah.
And he also made very plain in that interview that, well, I don't know him. And so I was, but I can unequivocally say he likes it. And so from his own mouth, this close to him, the day of the unveiling, and then I got to interview him a few weeks later. So he supports it.
Okay. Well, that's a good thing.
Yes, absolutely. But that's social media.
I know.
Even though I'm based in social media.
That's why we have to lay the facts out.
That's why
it's very important,
bro.
Because one thing they say, and the next thing, wait a minute, that's not what?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
That is so crazy. But I guess, we're basically what I was talking about, Salem United, which let me just tell you.
Yes.
Negro Election Day. It's the 283rd annual Negro Election Day celebration. It's going to be held Saturday, July 15th at Salem Willows. So you guys need to come on out. There's going to be performances there, plenty of food, everything. Rachel Rollins is going to be speaking. Mr. Clifton Braithwaite is going to be there because he's running for city council at large.
Okay.
So we got a lot. This is my second event
with them.
Yes.
Okay.
So this is going to be good. So come on down. I'll send you the information.
Absolutely.
And, just hang out and chill. And the next thing I want to bring up, what is your insight towards the community? Do you think things are getting any better or worse in terms of education, affordable housing, just in general?
So in general, that would lead me to speak to a term overall that talks about quality of life.
Okay.
Education,
Right.
housing,
Yes, yes.
mass and caste,
Yes.
incarceration,
Law enforcement and so on. Yes, yes, yes.
Quality
yes.
of life.
Yes.
When you say community, I am going to speak specifically to the black community, black and brown community, in reference to Boston, specifically to those Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan, Lower South End, Hyde Park. We got to start adding Hyde Park.
Right.
Can't forget about JP.
No,
where I'm from.
no. Cambridge, Brookline.
We have to give homage. Where's my camera? We have to give homage to Brookline because we're recording in Brookline right now. Boston is Boston. But Greater Boston includes
Greater Boston.
Chelsea.
Yes, of course.
But to answer your question, very honestly, in the moment right now, I would believe that we're sort of stagnant.
Okay, yeah.
I don't believe that we are going backwards as a black people.
Okay.
Now, as a country, and some legislation, this Voting Rights Act, the stuff that they're, Supreme Court is currently looking at and taking out, I think they already took out Part 5. If not, they're looking at Part 2 or vice versa. And so we have made some strides as a black people. Let's just name, first of all, from a political standpoint, the Honorable Andrea Campbell is our Attorney General.
That's right.
If you talk protocol, I actually should have named, as you said, our U.S. Attorney Rachel Rollins first because she's at the federal level. At the state level, we have Andrea Campbell. We have a black woman that ran for state secretary. Tanisha Sullivan. We are doing okay. The reason I say we're doing okay is we have made some strides, but we have not room for improvement, Andre. We got a canyon. For improvement within, there's some inner work that we need to do. And additionally, on the external, we still, as a part of our inner work, we need to figure out a way to still address in a strategic, sustainable, long-term manner systems, policies, and structures that keep us stagnant. That won't allow us to further proceed. As a country, I believe we are doing better. Unfortunately, it's usually by a tragedy. Qualified immunity is out there now because of what happened with George Floyd. Issues around guns and gun violence are at the forefront again through school shootings, but then through law enforcement killing black unarmed men. That's the national. You can't say Tyree Nichols without saying Tyler Lawrence, who was the 13-year-old that was killed in Mattapan. And now it's becoming more public whose family member succumbed to so much pain of that death that it's impacting our community even more. So with that being said, on one vein, we're doing better. And I mean in the space of maintaining our mental wellness and addressing mental illness. I think black folks are becoming more open to therapy,
Right.
more open to health. We got a lot of room to grow in making our health a priority. You and I, as black men, we're probably around the same age. We got to, schedule those colonoscopies and prostate exams and whatnot. And so there is a wokeness, if you will, around health.
Right.
But you said education.
Yes.
You said the economy.
Yes.
We're still not out of COVID.
No,
all doing,
we're not. We're not.
Better.
No.
But COVID is still active.
Yes,
and
it is.
we have not seen, the thing that is so concerning that I pray doesn't push us backwards is the full impact of COVID. In education spaces, we're seeing it. I don't know if you heard yesterday, 5 teenagers had to get taken to the hospital because they found or they got edibles and ate them and it was too much.
Yes, I did hear about that, yes.
Here's another part. What if they were laced with fentanyl?
Yeah? Oh, forget about it.
There would have been 5 hearses
That's right.
there.
That's right.
You know, so not to get too far off from your original question of how we're doing, I think if I was to give us a grade that is all inclusive, I would say a C+ or B-. Effort for black folks,
Yes.
A+.
Okay.
Conduct,
Very good analogy.
I would say a C- only because we have to keep our voices raised.
Yes.
Not united, but where we can and we agree on policy and philosophical approaches and to quality of life, our conduct has to do better and raise the importance of coming together and calling out issues and speaking truth to power.
Right. Yes, yes, yes. So what do you think about Mr. Clifton Braithwaite running for city council?
Now, how you gonna ask me
I've
a
known
question
him
about an
for like
individual?
40 years. And he's
yeah.
just, he feels he can make a difference. And he's been serving the
And
community
as-
for over 3 decades.
As he
And,
should.
You know, and I like the fact that he's doing it. I'm helping actually running with the campaign. We're going to have him on, matter of fact, hopefully in the next couple of weeks or so. And of course, he's going to give his vision.
Yep.
But just what is, okay, I guess the real question I want to ask is about politicians. Do you think, because what I see, let me just give you my perspective. From what I see, everybody's starting to take matters in their own hands.
Go a little bit deeper.
Okay. In other words, if
Y'all know I'm
somebody,
a host too, so I'm gonna put him on the spot for a minute.
if somebody does something wrong, they'll try to handle it themselves. Instead of calling the police, they'll go and try to resolve an issue. Oh, they shot my son. Oh, that was my nephew. They'll go try to handle it themselves. It's like people are less trying to call out for help. They want to do things their own way. If somebody gets sick, instead of going to the hospital, they'll call up and get something delivered to them, some type of self-made prescription, if not over the counter. In other words, people are just, like when people started taking their masks off during COVID at its peak. And people just, it seems like they just are impatient. They want instant gratification. They want things to get better, but they're taking it upon themselves, taking the risks without looking at the reprisals from it. That's what I see. And as far as politicians go, people are starting to, I think there's more apathy now because people are starting to say, you know what, I'm not voting for anybody because all politicians are the same. They all make promises they can't keep. That's what I see the community moving in that direction. People are starting to become more independent in terms of, well, probably a lack of a better word, but more the type to just take matters in their own hands and not have to depend on someone else to, like, it seems like everybody was waiting for someone else to rescue them.
Yep.
If someone's in trouble, they call for help and all that. Seems like people are not doing that as much anymore, from what I've seen.
There's a few things there that I'd like to speak to and unpack a little bit. One is, you are right. I think some of the general things that you talked about not going to the doctor.
Right.
There's a whole hood aspect of somebody getting shot and somebody pulling that into their own hands. That sits over here. Going to the doctor, going to a therapist, and I'm going to get to the word and I almost said it, belief in politicians that have your best interests at heart.
Right.
Comes down to me for a word of trust or a lack thereof. And so I have accountability. I have a segment on the show called Your Healthy Java, and it's a partnership with Massachusetts General Hospital.
Okay.
And one of the things that we do is we try to ensure in the first couple of minutes of a doctor, nurse, caregiver coming on, we need to know your background, why you chose to be a heart surgeon, why you chose to be a pediatrician, because the community just needs to know you a little bit prior to you giving this information.
Right.
In healthcare, we know that there are inequitable practices. Women of color, specifically trans women, they're not treated well. Those members of the LGBTQ spectrum sometimes are discriminated against.
Yes.
And so that comes from the healthcare space. When it comes to the law enforcement, don't really need to do a whole lot of explaining there or clarifying. Now, that has to be balanced with something I said a few years ago. The police aren't going anywhere.
No.
We're not going anywhere. The police aren't going anywhere. And we for damn sure
And we just got a new commissioner. Michael
anywhere.
Cox is just...
Absolutely.
And look how long it took him to find somebody to take William Gross's place.
So there's a whole political thing there with Marty getting ready to leave, the cross of Kim.
Marty's gone.
With
He's
Mayor
in DC
Janey,
now.
rather, and then waiting for when Michelle won. So generally speaking, you know, the community's concern or hesitation with involving law enforcement right away is real. However, car accident, sickness, shooting, or whatever, who's the first person? 911 for the ambulance and whatnot. And so there is a movement to get a lot more human service, social workers involved with the police in certain calls and cases. To go back to your point and talk about politics and Cliff getting in the race and whatnot, first of all, I've known Cliff for a long time. Cliff is a dad to my little cousin. And so I applaud him putting his hat in the ring. Now, I have told all my friends that as of about maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, when you as a friend tell me that you're going to run for office, there's a dynamic in our relationship that changes. Councilor Julia Mahir, her very first political organizing meeting was in my living room.
Oh, wow.
And so the cadence, she was one of the ones that said, Jimmy, you a little bit different with me as a candidate. And this has nothing to do with any of the folks that I just named. Thanks to people like Carlos Enriquez, Stephanie Everett, a few others, my politicalness or my political awareness is at a heightened level around viability, around process, around cutting the universe and things like that. And so viability, let me back up a little bit. The city council at large field this year in Boston is probably going to be huge. There are going to be a lot of what folks would classify as viable candidates. They can raise the money, they got the name recognition, they can call people to come out for them, hold signs and all that other stuff. You have the other folks that want to do something and raise their voice. Let's say, for example, like a Cliff. Kind of in politics, knows some of the stuff, made some connections, worked on campaigns that are now switching and moving into a candidate role. They know the field a little bit. But then you have the folks that are community leaders, they're tired of politics as they see them, and they're not politically astute. They don't, know about the ones and raising the money and whatnot, but they are able to organize and listen and hear people and then convey that to the perceived powers that be. And so out of those three, and then we have the incumbents, the ones that are going to try to get reelected. And so Boston is going to be very interesting this year. I would not be my authentic self in just saying that across the board, our black electeds and electeds of that aren't black, white electeds that represent a large population of black and brown people, I have not seen, heard enough from them around issues of violence. As a unit, some individuals, but as a unit, where are they? Where are you? And so that, I bring that up because we know that in a couple of months, incumbents, new candidates, everybody's going to have a plan to address the violence. Where have you been in the past 2 years? It's an election year, so now you got a little extra chutzpah or something to come out with a plan. And so, my thing is, and part of the platform is to bring information to the community, sometimes about the candidates. You can judge, not judge, you can assess an incumbent a little bit better than you can a new candidate. But if they've done work in the community, you can kind of assess them a little bit. And so Boston is going to, let's come back in July, or I told you I was trying to be out of here this summer, but let's come back in July or August.
Yeah.
And let's have a conversation about who jumped in, who's doing
right.
well, what the
Yep.
debates are like. I'll make sure you get an invitation. I'm going to do a debate.
Yes.
With the candidates, with some other partners. Yes,
Okay.
Java with Jimmy is going to do a candidates debate or forum,
Looking
because
forward to that.
debate, kind of sets a certain tone. So a candidate forum, we'll be doing that sometime in August.
Are you thinking
And so
about running yourself for any type of office?
You think you slipped throwing that up on me while I'm talking? No, I am not. I will say that this year, at points of trauma and frustration, for the first time in about, 23? For the first time in about 10 years, I thought about running. I was supposed to run in 2013.
Really?
My goal, when I went in Mayor Menino's office, I'm like, I'm running before the mayor leaves, get the mayor behind me, and I'm going to run for city council.
Okay.
I'm going to win the presidency of the city council, and then somehow going to ascend to be the mayor of Boston. That was kind of my thought process when I was working at City Hall.
Right.
Since then, I'm all set. I'd rather be a kingmaker, quote unquote, than king. And I'm 51 years old. There's a whole generation of young people behind me that I'm now at the point where I am, this is the first time I'm saying this publicly.
Right.
I am at the beginning of my end in this space.
Okay.
Not with the show. I'm moving into some consulting stuff.
Okay.
But being that boisterous, out there, advocate, activist, I'm now at a point where, counting my time as a peer educator, Andre,
Right.
I got 40 years in. 40 is the number of change. Now I want to be behind and push and advise the next generation. And not advise because I know everything. No, advise from the 50,000 times I fell on my face and made mistakes and learn from them.
Right.
So overall, Boston politics is going to be very interesting this year. We're going to find out. I tried to tease on Twitter a couple of months ago. I'll give you some free time on the air if you let me know who's running. I thought that would pull a couple of people out. Not really. But I will say that we are going to look at the candidates very, very hard. Our incumbents right now, there's a wide variety of opinions from the at-larges to the district.
Right.
We got this little pocket of white racists, old school Boston on city council that don't want to that are not in favor of a lot of the progressive policies that empower and cause an equitable environment around a lot of issues. And so some of those need to get knocked off at large and district. And if it wasn't for, being on your show, I would say names, but I'm going to behave and be nice.
For more information, please log on to our website at thebeantv.com. If you want to be a guest on our show, if you got some opinions and views you want to express, again, log on to thebeantv.com. My name is Andre Hollywood Evans. I want to thank Mr. James Hills for being here with us today. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. But tune in to Java with Jimmy in the mornings.
Java with Jimmy in the mornings. Thank you so much. Java with Jimmy, Monday through Thursday at 9 a.m. On Facebook at Java with Jimmy, JAVAWITH, JIMMY. Also on Twitter and Instagram as well. Thank you for having me here, man. And
Anytime.
Once I get because I don't want to do the Zoom. I could bring you on the show, but I don't want to. After doing this, once I get a spot, and I want to bring you on.
Oh yeah,
and talk
definitely.
about your path.
Oh yeah.
Talk about your health.
Of course.
And your mental health.
Yes.
That's the space we move in.
Most
Java with
def.
Jimmy.
Most
So
def.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you.
Oh, anytime. Again, thank you for watching this edition of Community Insight. I'm Andre Hollywood Evans. We'll see you again next week.